All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about India's guardians of justice, the court system. Now, these courts are supposed to be the ultimate protectors of our rights, right? But how do they actually work? And maybe more importantly, what happens when that system itself is under pressure? Let's get into it. Seriously, just think about it for a second. What if a new government policy suddenly took away a right you've always counted on? Or you were wronged by someone powerful? Where would you even go to get a fair shot? Well, for over a billion people in India, the answer is supposed to be the judiciary.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the judiciary's whole reason for being, its core promise. Then we'll look at what keeps it independent. After that, we'll actually follow a case as it climbs up the ladder of the courts. We'll ask the tough question, is justice really for everyone? And finally, we'll land on a final verdict about the system's role today.
Okay, so first things first. What is the fundamental promise of the justice system? It all boils down to this one big idea, the rule of law. And it's a simple but powerful concept. No one, not you, not me, not the most powerful politician, is above the law. Everyone is equal in its eyes. And the judiciary? Well, it's the institution built to make sure that promise is kept. The judiciary's job really breaks down into three huge responsibilities. First, it's a referee. It resolves disputes. Second, and this is a big one, it's a constitutional watchdog. Through something called judicial review, it has the incredible power to strike down any law, even a law passed by Parliament, if it messes with the basic structure of the Constitution. And third, it's a shield, protecting the fundamental rights that are guaranteed to every single citizen. But here's the thing. For any of that to work, for the whole system to have any meaning at all, it all hinges on one single, absolutely crucial word: independence. A judge's decision has to be free from the influence of powerful politicians or big corporations. It has to be based on the law and nothing else. And you can really see what's at stake right here. On one side, you've got justice as a puppet show, where a judge's hands are tied. You've got no chance of a fair trial there. But on the other side, you have a judge who is free to weigh the facts and the law, and that's it. That independence is pretty much the only thing standing between regular citizens and the abuse of power. So how is this independence protected? It's baked right into the Constitution, with a core idea called the separation of powers. Basically, it means the other branches of government, the legislature that makes the laws and the executive that implements them, they have to keep their hands off the judiciary's work. It's so important to remember, the courts don't work for the government, they work for the law. So, what does this system actually look like? Well, India has what's called an integrated judicial system. The easiest way to think about it is like a ladder. If you get a decision on the lower rung that you believe is wrong, you have the right to appeal to a higher one. This pyramid shows it perfectly. See, at the bottom, you have tons of district courts. These are the ones most people interact with day to day. Then you move up a level to the high courts in each state. And at the very, very top, the single Supreme Court in New Delhi. The key takeaway here is that any decision made by a higher court is binding on all the courts below it. Now, to see how this ladder actually works in the real world, let's look at a tragic but really important case from the 1980s, the case of Sudha Goyal. The fight for justice for her would force her family to climb every single rung of this judicial system. So the case started in a trial court. Neighbors testified that they heard Sudha screams and saw her on fire. In fact, Sudha herself, before she died, told them that her mother-in-law had poured kerosene on her and her husband, Laxman, had lit the match, all because her family couldn't meet their demands for more dowry. The court heard this, found them guilty, and handed down the death sentence. But it didn't end there. The accused used their right to appeal, and the case went up the ladder to the High Court. And this is where the story takes a jarring turn. The High Court completely overturned the conviction. They decided it was just an accidental fire. Laxman and his family were acquitted, which means they were declared not guilty. As you can imagine, this decision sparked outrage across the country. Women's rights groups, who were horrified by the High Court's decision, filed another appeal, this time to the very top of the ladder, the Supreme Court. The highest court in the land reviewed the case and, well, they reached a very different conclusion. They overturned the acquittal, found Laxman and his mother guilty, and sentenced them to life in prison. It's a powerful, real-life example of the appellate system in action. So that story shows the system can work. It shows that justice is possible. But it also brings up a really critical question. In theory, the courts are open to every single citizen. But is that the reality? Can everyone actually climb that ladder to justice? Because the hard truth is, for a huge number of people in India, the courts can feel a million miles away. Legal procedures cost a lot of money, they involve a mountain of complicated paperwork, and they take an unbelievable amount of time. If you're a family just trying to earn a daily wage to survive, the whole idea of going to court can seem pretty much impossible. Now, in response to this exact problem, the Supreme Court came up with something truly revolutionary back in the 1980s, the Public Interest Litigation, or PIL. This was a game changer. It allows any individual or organization to file a case on behalf of people whose rights are being violated. They even simplified the process so much that a simple letter or telegram sent to the court could be treated as a PIL. This blew the doors of justice wide open for millions. And the power of a PIL can be absolutely life-changing. Just look at what happened in 2001. There was a massive drought, people were starving, but at the same time, government warehouses were overflowing with grain. So, an organization filed a PIL. They argued that the constitutional right to life has to include the right to food. The Supreme Court agreed. They ruled the government had a duty to provide food, and that ruling led directly to the creation of the midday meal scheme, which still feeds millions of schoolchildren every single day, all from one PIL. So we've seen the immense power of the judiciary for good. It's a check on government and a protector of our rights. But that's not the whole story. The system is facing some massive challenges today, challenges that really affect its ability to deliver justice. And a big one is just the sheer number of cases. We're talking about millions and millions of cases pending in courts across the country. You've probably heard this famous phrase before, and it perfectly captures one of the biggest crises facing the system. With this insane backlog of cases, the time it takes for a court to just hear a case, let alone decide it, can stretch on for years, sometimes even decades. And that delay can cause unimaginable hardship. And you know, a huge part of the problem is right here in these numbers. Just look at the vacancies. Over 300 empty seats in the high courts, and almost 6,000 unfilled judge positions in the district courts. I mean, with that many judges missing from the bench, while the number of cases just keeps climbing every day, delays aren't just likely, they're inevitable. But even with these very serious issues, these delays and vacancies, we can't lose sight of the bigger picture. The judiciary has played, and it continues to play, an absolutely critical role in India's democracy. It's still one of the most important checks we have on government power, and a vital guardian of the rights of every single citizen. So we'll leave you with this to think about. We know the judiciary is the guardian of our rights. But if that guardian is overburdened and slow, how do we, as a society, make sure that the promise of justice actually becomes a reality for everyone and is truly never, ever denied?